Today starts our first day of Cookie Week on the blog, thebananadiaries.com, and today we're going to be making these absolutely wonderful vegan sugar cookies. So we'll first start by creaming together the softened vegan butter along with the coconut sugar. So here I'm using Miyoko's vegan butter. I've also used Forager Project with this as well as Earth Balance. Personally, I prefer Miyoko's and Forager Project over Earth Balance, but any vegan butter works here as long as it's softened. So basically that means lightly indent it with your finger when you touch it. It does not need to be melted. And then we're going to add in the coconut sugar, and we're just going to use a hand mixer. You can also use a stand mixer to cream together the vegan butter and coconut sugar until it is nice and fluffy. This will take about 1 to 2 minutes. Once the vegan butter and coconut sugar are all creamed together, we're going to add in the flaxseed that has been soaking in some water so that it helps kind of coagulate and act like an egg, quote unquote, in vegan baking. So we're just going to pour this right in, and then we're going to continue creaming it all together until it is completely consistent, and then we'll add in our dry ingredients. This is where you'd also add in the vanilla extract or almond extract. Those are optional, but definitely recommended if you have those on hand, especially the vanilla. It definitely adds a nice flavor to these cookies that makes them taste just like regular sugar cookies. No one will know that they're vegan. And now we're going to add in the dry ingredients. So here's a cup of almond flour, which you can also use gluten-free 1-to-1 baking flour or all-purpose flour, and then some more flour, so 1 cup of flour here, but you can use gluten-free 1-to-1 baking flour. The reason why we're using almond flour in here, if you need to keep it nut-free, you can definitely omit, but the almond flour gives the cookies that classic sugar cookie taste. And we're going to add in some baking powder as well here, just about half a teaspoon, and that will help the cookies pop up and not spread in the oven. So now we're just going to use a rubber spatula, and I definitely recommend using rubber spatula. This is a lot easier to help mix the dough, but we're just going to mix it until it is a nice and consistent sticky dough here. This whole process will take about 5 minutes here, and then we're going to actually cover our dough. We'll form it into a circular disc, and then we'll refrigerate it for 30 minutes. So when wrapping our dough, I actually decided not to use plastic wrap. You can use plastic wrap if you have that on hand. I'm trying to not use as much plastic these days, so I use some parchment paper that we can recycle afterwards. So we're just going to form it into a nice circular flat disc here, which will make it a lot easier to roll out when we're ready to roll out and cut our sugar cookies. And then we will pop it into the fridge to chill for 30 minutes, and then we are ready to roll out. Now, depending on how cold your fridge is, you might need to allow the dough to sit at room temperature for 10 minutes just to completely soften so that it's easy to roll and it doesn't break. But once it's ready to roll, then you will lightly flour a clean surface as well as the dough itself and the rolling pin. We're going to roll the dough out to be about 1/4 inch thick. It doesn't have to be this precise, but that's generally what we're looking for here. And then you can use any cookie cutter shape that you'd like. I'm doing a mixture of snowflake cookies as well as some snowmen and some Christmas trees, but you can also use mittens, you could do reindeer, you could use angels, you could do stars, whatever floats your boat here. I'm going to link the cookie cutters that I use specifically down in the description box, so be sure to go check that out if you like this cookie shape in particular. But then we're just going to carefully peel away the dough, and we're going to actually re-roll those scraps. I literally use every single bit of dough. No dough goes wasted at all. Like, even if there's just an inch of dough left, I will bake that. But basically then we're just going to carefully transfer our cut out sugar cookies to a prepared parchment paper lined tray, and then we will just repeat this process. I recommend sticking a full tray into the fridge to chill while you're completing the rest of the dough. But if you have enough space on your cookie tray to fit all the cookies, that's totally fine. Then you can just pop it into the freezer or the fridge to chill for a few minutes. and then we will actually bake our cookies. Now the cookies will bake for just about 7 to 8 minutes depending on your oven. But once they're completely baked, you're going to want them to completely cool before we ice them. So they should look like this in color. If you use granulated sugar, then they will actually look a little bit whiter like a regular sugar cookie. But then once you're ready to frost them, we're going to be making our aquafaba vegan royal icing. So right here we just added in some aquafaba to the powdered sugar, and I'm using a hand mixer to beat it all together and make it nice and smooth and creamy. Now you can adjust the thickness of this royal icing. I personally, if you're making a gingerbread house, I want it a little bit thicker, so use less aquafaba, but if you're decorating, I like it a little bit runnier, so we add a little bit more aquafaba. But when you're making the borders of the cookie, I recommend going with a thicker icing because that'll help everything when it starts to flood. Now I'm actually going to be separating part of the royal icing into another bowl so that we can make it some fun colors. We're going to be doing blue here. And for the food coloring, I actually use the Whole Foods plant-based vegan food coloring. I know that there are a few other brands on the market, but that's just the one that I like. Now make sure that you're covering any bowl of unused royal icing that you're not using at the current moment with a wet paper towel or cloth. This will help prevent the royal icing from hardening and drying out. So with that being said, we're now going to color this batch a little bit of a blue, and you can just continue to add in food coloring until you reach your desired color. And this is also great here too because typically I find with vegan food coloring, when you bake it, it starts to lose its color. We are not baking the icing, so it actually maintains its beautiful radiant blue color. And now we get to decorate our cookies. So truth be told, I actually wish I kind of went with a little bit of a runnier frosting on this because it definitely had to be smoothed over with an offset spatula. But you can just decorate these cookies however you want. I do have a full blog post on how to make royal icing and how to create the border so that you can flood the middle, and that I actually am going to teach you in the next video, so stay tuned for that. However, I kind of like the look of these cookies. They kind of look more homemade, and I always want these recipes to be approachable. I don't necessarily want to be super perfect. I want these to look like you can make them too, and you'll be really, really happy with them, and you'll absolutely love the taste and love the look. So just have fun decorating these. The less you try to make it perfect, I always say this, but the less you try to make it perfect, then actually the closer to perfect it ends up being, quote unquote perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. But anyways, I'm using just a toothpick here to fill in any gaps, and then I'm going to clean up the edges right over there. And then I'm going to actually let these set for a little bit, and then I can pipe on the little snowflake design. So if you go onto Pinterest, you can actually find a lot of different snowflake designs. Even just look up snowflakes so that you can kind of create your own and make it look like your own kind of style, which is what I was trying to go for. But once you've decorated all of your cookies, you'll let them set for about 15 minutes, and then you can bring them to your cookie exchange. You can just enjoy them as is. You can box them up and ship them, which we actually have a full guide on how to ship cookies, and I'll link that down below in the description box as well. And the full recipe to this, along with the vegan royal icing, can be found at thebananadiaries.com, and I hope that you absolutely love this cookie recipe. Let me know how it goes for you down below in the comment section, and I look forward to seeing your beautiful creations.